So it's brilliant.
Okay.
So where are you at the moment then?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Brilliant. So are you on the half hour there?
We it's 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Fantastic. Okay, correct. So yeah, it's 3 o'clock here in the afternoon, so it's really good. And
That's why I love talking across the pond. I love the future, so I get to see what's going on. So, where are you located exactly?
So I'm an hour outside of Glasgow in a little small town called Gairloch Head, 15 minutes from Loch Lomond.
Wonderful, man. It's so good to meet
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
No, lovely to meet you and looking forward to it. I'm fairly new to podcast guesting, so hopefully it'll be smooth and I won't ramble too much. So
Oh,
any feedback at the end would be amazing. I'd massively appreciate that.
yes, sir.
There you
Absolutely.
go.
So, let's kick everything off here with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years with COVID. How have you gone through this pandemic period, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Wow, simple one to start with, I
Yeah,
would say.
right.
I would say, well, a couple of simple things is I've moved country. So for the last 30 years or so, I've mainly lived down in England. And after 3 4 months of walking along the industrial banks of the River Thames in North Kent, I decided that it was time to go back to the green hills of home, so to speak, back up to Scotland. And because what I loved about where I lived was I was an hour from being in the centre of London for networking or meetings or events. And of course, with COVID and lockdowns, all of that literally disappeared overnight. So I moved back up home to Scotland during COVID. So that was a big shift. And our business, we've been working remotely for years. But obviously, lots of the stuff that we were doing live just changed, and everybody seemed to move into a very contractive space and a contractive mode, except bizarrely, as a publisher, I kind of was terrified because I knew there was about to be a tsunami of low quality books about to hit the market because
Yeah.
everybody was thinking, oh, I've got time now, I'll write a book. And so we kind of stepped back a little bit from that and focused on what's been working well in our business. We had some big projects that kept us going, which was brilliant. But we took the extra time we suddenly found ourselves with going, there have been things we've done for a few years in the business, and the warning bells have been there, but we've not been paying attention.
Yeah.
So we've completely transformed our business model, and and bizarrely, what we did was we set a really clean distinction between our traditional publishing projects, because we used to publish every project at our cost. Even if we did coaching or training with somebody, if they got their manuscript into good shape, we would then invest in editorial and design. And some of those projects worked really well, but the bells have been going. Most of these people want to be authors more than they want to be read by readers. And that was bad news financially for us. So we had some very expensive learning. So what we did was we've completely separated the publishing into two bits. We've got a mission side of publishing, which is where we invest in projects. So we publish projects. So a few years ago, we published a book by a young man called Tyler Inman called Invisible Me. And he was 10 years old with Asperger's. And it's his book, his world, inviting you in to experience it. And it's brilliant. And those are the projects that we publish on our own costs. So that's around gender, orientation, neurodiversity, mental health, racial injustice, social injustice, all of those stories that people have that wouldn't be seen or heard otherwise. And then the commercial side of the business is we work with coaches, speakers, trainers, consultants, and everything is almost publishing as a service. So you get the same high quality, but it's all charged. And we flipped all the numbers around. So there's a fee for being published, but they make much, much more money when they're selling their books. So they've de-risked their projects for us. And bizarrely, as we started to separate them, we started working with authors who know and want their projects to support these other ones. which is brilliant. It's just so that bizarrely that challenge we faced it in COVID, and it's now, I think, building as a stronger
Yeah.
mission-based business and a commercial one. So that was a bit of a long answer. Hopefully
No,
that
no,
made some sense for
no.
you. So,
That was good. It was like I lined up the dominoes and you hit a lot of things that I wanted to get at. But I want to
brilliant.
hone in specifically on you. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day and one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you explain it?
I help people who teach other people as coaches or trainers or speakers to be as brilliant in their books and in their courses at getting great results for people as they are when they're one-to-one with them or when they're with them on a stage. So that when I help people make a book, that when a reader has it, it is like being with the author and having their lives changed by them as if they were sitting next to them.
That's wonderful. So when you were young in the third grade, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't think I had a picture of who I wanted to be when I grew up. I think I had a sense of what I wanted to achieve. So I had a very interesting family background, brilliant in many ways and kind of troubled in lots of ways, and slightly older than third grade. But I remember a kind of dramatic experience where I found myself big family drama and all kind of craziness, and standing in the hallway of the house in my pajamas back in those days, and being in floods of tears because there was nothing I could do. I felt awful. There was chaos all around. And I don't know if I articulated it in my words, but I don't want anyone to feel like this. And I think that's like something happened in that moment that set me in that kind of wanting to empower and to create transformation for people from that painful position. And then that eventually led into a church situation where I was involved. I was a priest for 12 years and in a Catholic religious order for 20 years altogether, because that was felt like the natural fit after uni. That's how I can help support and empower and create change and transformation. And I think, even although it's a very different context, I still have the same mission and the same desire, but it's really to help other people get their message sculpted and shaped so they can create change and transformation at scale. So it's more of a service of them than it is me being the one to do it.
You're a
But
natural at
it all
this.
goes back to that. All goes
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to that.
You're a natural at this. You're hitting a lot of points. You're just spreading the net. So I'm curious, what was the first book that you read growing up that really opened the doors up, that made you want to love reading and devour books?
What's the first one? I surprised myself there. The first one that I think I would go back to again and again. Obviously, there were little kids ones, but don't really remember them. I had it was like a full plastic leather covered children's Bible, and it was very, that very old style of illustrations, kind of very pastel, white Jesus, blue eyes, all of that kind of style. But the stories were told in very simple language. And I would go back to them because I was fascinated by the pictures and the stories being told in different ways from than I heard in the formal sense in church. That was the first one. I think the author that had a big impact on me was Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
And there's a book called Danny Champion of the World, and it's been a long time since I've read it. I actually now want to go back and read it. And it was a young boy with his dad, and his dad was a bit of a chancer, a bit of a poacher, and they lived on their own. And it was that I think there's something about Roald Dahl's writing that is really real. They are children's books, but they're not really. and you could connect to I could connect to that sense of isolation and loneliness and the wanting to be connected and part of a family and and rooted, and that book kind of lasted with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roald Dahl, brilliant.
Yeah. So who's been kind of a hero for you in your life?
Wow, that's a good one. I I'm not a great fan of heroes and gurus and all that kind of stuff. I suppose for me, actually, I, I'm I'm much more moved or inspired by ordinary people who cope and thrive or help others thrive in ordinary, extraordinary challenges rather than mountaineering or sailing the Atlantic. And I think certainly when I was in the church context, I would meet people with phenomenal resilience, phenomenal compassion, and generosity, who really had every right to be angry and resentful. And I see that today, even outside the church context, without the religious filter around it. Basically, people who are humane when they have every reason to be unpleasant or short or curt. So yeah, not a very good answer to about who's my hero, but actually I'm much more interested in being inspired by people who are humane, not some kind of superhero
That
kind of
makes sense.
person.
That's a great answer. And I'm curious, for all of these qualities that you've talked about that are so full of esteem that people have, what is it for you every day when you wake up and you go through your day that motivates you, that makes you who you are, and that makes you want to accomplish what you want to get done?
Legacy. I think that it feels terribly pompous to me to say I get up to create a legacy, but there is a sense that that is exactly what I'm about. We don't The whole thing of publishing a book is it's something which is real and can be still read in 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, if it's creating change and value. And I think it's that sense that working with people, that whatever they do today can make a significant change for the long term. That's an energy. It's that gap between that kind of big vision of transformation and knowing that what I do today is a really potent step towards that. I think that cognitive dissonance, or that gap, is where I get my energy from, because to me that vision is already real, but it's frustrating at the moment because it isn't. But yeah, so I want to step closer to that.
So I'm curious with the book Invisible Me, my son's actually on the spectrum and
Yeah,
he's 18. So I've been in the special needs community for a long time, and
yeah.
you tend to kind of exist in a different world a lot of the times, and you see things in a completely different way. And as challenging as it can be totally illuminating. And I'm curious, in this journey of you giving voice to people that otherwise wouldn't feel like they could share their story, or that they felt like people wanted to hear it. What's the overall feeling of that triumph, that you're giving people these opportunities and you're helping them in their lives? What does that mean for you?
It, I, yeah, it's quite a humbling experience. And I think this is one of the things that I'm learning more and more and more with each project, whether it's a super mission project or it's a business oriented one, is that um, all of us feel other in so many different ways, and we have these boxes or labels or diagnoses or collections of symptoms that normal people have labeled, actually, looking at Tyler, it's not, yeah, it's allowing him to tell his story, and it's a raw, deep, powerful tale. But the thing, the magic bit is actually the thousands of people who've read that are inside his world now. That and are changed by that. That's the magic bit for me. That 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 they're experiencing what at obviously at a remove, but they are experiencing something which is an insight from someone in a very different space, and they become much more compassionate. I think that's the thing, is I've had conversations with people who've read it and gone, I don't understand it, but I can feel for people in that situation. I feel connected to them, and it's made me think differently about how I behave.
Yeah.
And that to me is the sense that every one of us can learn from everybody else's perspective, whatever
Yeah.
that is, and include rather than shut down or defend my patch, because actually we're all vulnerable. We're I mean, God forbid any of us, none of us are normal.
Yeah, right. No, we're not. I'm curious, you talked about your childhood and being in the hall and having that
Yeah.
overwhelming feeling of not wanting to be in that position and help people to get to other places. So let me present this to you. If you have a dream tonight, you run into that much younger version of you, and you could dispense some advice on that young version of you based on the wisdom that you've gained in your life, the things you've overcome. What would you tell that young version of you?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think I would say to myself, and go for what you want, but always be in the moment, because the teaching, the learning is in the moment for what you need to do that, but don't run away from it to get to that. Be in the moment. um because I think that, I am very legacy driven, but there have been times where um I've chased that dream or that thing that I want to achieve, and kind of lost who I was for a while, and felt detached, and I'm only here once. So yeah, I'd say to them, go for that vision, but be totally in wherever you are, and good, bad, and different, make the most, and squeeze the learning from that.
So of all of the things that you've done so far in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? The Yeah, it's Tyler's book. I remember with Martin, who's my partner in the business, when it was published, and we were at the end of the day. There've been lots of kind of press events and bits and bobs, and Martin and I sat down together, and because it was a project that kind of surprised us, it wasn't something we'd expected. Just it all kind of just came together, and at the end of the day, Martin and I sitting down and go, "But if we don't do anything else, we can know we've done this and be super proud of it." And that, I want lots, and I'm proud of all the projects that we've done, but that one, I think, had a profound experience on Martin and I, and in our business, because actually it gave us an experience of what we wanted to do for everybody, which is, whether it's a person or it's a business, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be attended to, and share their value. And I think it's the most concrete example we have of where we were able to help someone do that. So yeah, I still get the hairs on the back of my neck thinking of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone out there, Richard, has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately are in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a bit of a round peg in a square hole. I think I feel that the world needs a bit of disruption, a bit of flexibility, a little bit of alternative perspectives. And so I think I like to present and speak and move to inspire, but also to challenge. And so I think in my life that I've been disrupted lots of times, and I kind of want a little bit more disruption in a healthy way, for the environment around me. So that, yeah, I'd see myself as a disruptor for the good. Whether other people think that, and that's another matter, but that's how I feel or perceive myself. I, and I do feel that when I'm presenting something, that I see people's eyes that can either they widen or they glaze over, and then suddenly like a light bulb goes off, that I'm actually doing something valuable in that experience.
That's wonderful. So, Richard, if anyone wants to learn more about your publishing, anything about your world, reach out. What's the best way to do that?
The simplest way is to find me on LinkedIn. So my name's Richard Hagen from M Power Publishing, and that's MPOWR, because why would a publisher spell their name the normal way? So it's MPOWR Publishing. And you can find us at empowerpublishing.com or Immersive Publishing, which is immersive.pub.
You're a natural, Richard. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for your story, for opening up. It was raw, revealing, and wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So I didn't realize we were going straight into it. So apologies for the beginning bit. Okay.
No, you're fine. That's why we have editing buttons. But no, you were great. And I come from jazz radio. It's my other zygote that's split.
Yeah.
So I tend to kind of follow the musicians. I've done it for so long that I just kind of jump in and improv.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, I appreciate the feedback as well, and I look forward to getting it out on LinkedIn and spreading it on my socials and stuff as well. So
yeah,
and you're super easy to. I love the questions. It's nice to get that broader thing. Had to do a wee bit of thinking, so that was great.
Yeah, well, it's good to really cut into the humanity of what we do and why we do what we do, and that's the thing that's so good about what you're doing. Because I'll be real raw with you. I've honestly thought about writing about my experiences, but I don't know that I want to relive it. I mean, it's not, and I'm not being negative, but it's a long journey, and there's so much that goes into it, and I tend to kind of, I don't know, maybe that's a part of my existentialism. That's a part of my healing. That's a part of I go from one moment to the next, and maybe at some point I can be reflective, but I think living in the moment with my son and my reality is the best therapy that I can offer.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah. I mean, I think the thing is with it is that not every book needs to be published. In fact, I would argue there are too many books being published. Right. But yeah, and most of them are rubbish. But that's a whole other rant mode. But there's the writing as therapy, as self-therapeutic. And I think that's what happens with some business books, is that they write something for themselves and then it goes out and you go, really? That's all about you. I think if somebody's going to write something, you want to, even Invisible Me, he had a purpose. He was fed up of seeing, and he has a younger brother who was selective mute at the time, and how he was treated and excluded from class and all this stuff. And he wanted people to understand so that they could treat people better in these conditions. So he was writing it to help people make a change. And I think there's no reason that anyone should be it's certainly in the business or health space. If you're writing a book about yourself, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I want a book that changes my story. I'm in that way, it's brutally selfish. Like, tell me your anecdotes, but make it about my story. Make it relevant to me. Which is why I have a problem with the motivational climbing Everest with one hand tied behind my back stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's so well said, because I think that's the way it is. I think there's a level of our ego that can get so inflated where it's like, let's look at this holistically. So well said, well done. I
Brilliant.
will let my brain kind of wrap around what we did, but I will tell you from a
Yeah.
cerebral place right now, a
Yeah.
very raw place. You're wonderful, man. You're a natural. You did very well. You naturally kind of blanket things that could be future questions, and you lead into things that might be a little bit more unexpected. So you're really good at this. So thank you.
Brilliant.
I appreciate
Excellent.
it, and best of luck. And I'll throw some feedback and a review and all of that. So
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and I'll look forward to maybe another conversation sometime in the future.
I would love to, man.
Or
Thank
if you want to
so
write
much.
that book, there's always a person to come to another chat.
There you go. I
Cheers,
love
Joe.
it. You never know what will happen.
Really?
Cheers.
You never do. Cheers.
That's
Bye-bye.
right. Thank you.